That's YouTube.
This is YouTube, this is Periscope, and this is We Are Vaxxed.
Okay.
Good morning or afternoon, everybody.
Hello. I'll look at your pets on Periscope, primarily.
Yeah.
Hello, Periscope pets. Okay, so I grew up just thinking that vitamin C was in oranges and we should eat lots of oranges and citrus fruits, and that was just a really good thing to do. So I pretty much grew up drinking Tropicana orange juice and being deluded that I was getting vitamin C, or that I could take a chewable vitamin C tablet. And then when I started to wake up to some of the problems in medicine, the vitamin C issue came up as well again. So around 2008, I purchased a large jar of sodium ascorbate. And then somebody who I actually respect very much in the vaccine truth movement told me that it was just going to rob my body of essential nutrients, that it was manufactured by Hoffman LaRoche, and that it was poison. So I promptly threw it into the garbage bin. And then I started actually doing some reading and some research, and I read one book, entire book, that was bent on convincing the reader that only plant-based vitamin C can actually restore you to normalcy and cure scurvy. And then since then I went into the medical literature and I read about the inventor, Albert Szent-Györgyi, who, not inventor, the discoverer of the ascorbate molecule, and delved into the medical literature in all realms, including pregnancy, autism, intensive care unit use of vitamin C. And since then, I've been outspoken. I've written an article about the vitamin C treatment of whooping cough, which is available on my website, drsuzanne.net. And I've written a chapter about it in Dissolving Illusions about vitamin C as well, scurvy in the old days, what that looked like, what the problems were, because that actually has a lot to do with why the disease and death rates were so high in the times of severe malnutrition. So since then, I've received numerous letters. I still, to this day, pretty much several times a week, I'll receive a letter from somebody who either wants to educate me and tell me how wrong I am about recommending synthetic L-ascorbate, or wanting to make sure that I understood this phenomenon that whole vitamin C is so much better and is really the only true vitamin C to use. And so because I'm somebody who will go with the truth, whether it contradicts my previous thinking or not, I continue reading. I always read the things that people send me. And I'm pretty secure in my gut at this point about where I practice and where I stand on the issue. So I just thought that I would share that with you. And I'm not saying that at some point in the future it could change, but I really doubt that, only because I've had so much clinical experience now using synthetic L-ascorbate that I stand by it in some circumstances. Okay, so the dogma from the naturalists, so mind you, I am also a naturalist. I believe that, you know, God made everything probably in most, you know, especially back when things were normal, before we started screwing up the earth and having diseases like we have today, that most of the things that we find in our food is probably the best way to take it into our body. And the naturalists are very much in tune with that, and they say that real vitamin C is actually a complex of nutrients that includes bioflavonoids, rutin, tyrosine, copper, and other substances, as well as knowns and unknowns. And they'll show you a picture that looks like that.
Okay, so for this, let's start here. If you bring it, we can't see anything like what you're trying to show us. Let me just bring this up to there. Okay, I'm going to start with this. We Are Vaxxed there. Natural versus synthetic.
Show them that picture. That's what I want them to see.
Bring it up a bit. I don't know if you can see that picture very well. Okay, let's try Periscope.
I mean, you can just Google whole vitamin C and go to images.
Getting a much better look at it.
And you'll get that. Okay.
Wait a second, guys. Alright, let me just do YouTube.
There's only going to be 2 times when we're going to do this, just so you can see.
There you go.
Okay. So you can see that they're showing you a circle, and they're telling you that the outer portion of the natural vitamin C that you find in plants is the ascorbic acid, and that inside there are all these other substances, P factors, J factors, K factors, and the other things that I mentioned, and that if you take ascorbic acid, that you're going to basically rob your body of these other factors that should be coming along with that. So that's their argument. And mind you that a lot of these people I actually respect in a lot of ways. Like, I love the Weston Price Foundation. I respect a lot of their views. I just happen to disagree with this particular one. So I'm not here to rubbish anybody who wants to, you know, eat red peppers or oranges. I think we should all be doing that every day. Unless you are a ketogenic person, in which case you're probably eating some raw meat that's going to also give you some vitamin C. But in nature, there are plenty of chances to get ascorbate, to get whole vitamin C. And I think that you should be doing that.
Kiwi fruit.
Sorry?
Kiwi fruit.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you all the fruits in a moment.
I'll be quiet now.
No, it's okay. So most animals make L-ascorbate in their livers, okay, with the exception of primates and guinea pigs. There's some fruit bats, I think, that don't make it. And so, but the rest of those animals are synthesizing the L-ascorbate molecule, which is basically, that's Magic Mike.
Magic Mike is here. We'll talk about Magic Mike later. Let's stick with vitamin C right now.
So it's a carbon molecule. It's got 5 sides to it. That's why it was called hexuronic acid. A long time ago by Dr. Georgi. And so there's an enzyme missing, L-glucono lactone oxidase in human beings and primates and guinea pigs. And so we can't synthesize that anymore. But the point I want to make is that animals that do synthesize their own vitamin C do not synthesize the whole ascorbate molecule with all those factors and copper and the bioflavonoids. They synthesize L-ascorbate. What Dr. Georgi isolated in the adrenal glands of animals was not whole vitamin C. It was L-ascorbate. So just keep that in mind. And so, you know, the natural vitamin C is in the plant food. And I believe that it's in that particular configuration in order to preserve the plant. Because as we know, if you open up a plant, it can turn brown or it can rot. And so there's kind of an integrity inside that plant with that whole complex vitamin C. However, I've done an experiment where I've sliced open an apple, and I let one side sit there, and the other side I just put ascorbic acid straight from my synthetic Hoffman LaRoche jar, and it doesn't turn brown. So it is preserving that apple. It is donating electrons. It is an antioxidant to that open fruit. Okay, so as far as plants, what Polly was just saying, 2 tomatoes will give you 60 milligrams of whole vitamin C. 1 average size citrus fruit will give you 70 milligrams of whole vitamin C. Strawberries give you 11 milligrams per berry. Kiwi fruits give you 140 milligrams for 2 kiwi fruits, enormous yield. So kiwi fruits are actually
I got it right,
very
Dr.
high.
Suzanne.
Yeah, and a lot of the research that's come out of New Zealand, they use kiwi fruits to supplement the humans. And I've gone through this in my vitamin C lecture that I've done in New Zealand and in Scandinavia. 82 milligrams per chopped cup of broccoli. I don't like broccoli, so that's not going to help me. And then when you cook it, I think pretty much you're killing all of it. So you really want to have this stuff raw if you're going to get the vitamin C. And the other thing that I learned in my research, you know, a while back, is that once you slice these things open, once you put them in the refrigerator, the vitamin C content goes down. Same with breast milk, human breast milk. Once you pump it, put it in the fridge, let it sit, the vitamin C content does degrade. 133 milligrams per 100 grams of parsley, a very high yield plant that has a lot of use. 80 milligrams in 1 chopped cup of kale, but here's my favorite, 300 milligrams in 1 red bell pepper. So I think that's why Georgi was using the red peppers as his source when he was isolating it from plants. So I'm not here to tell you not to use these, but you can't give this kind of vitamin C intravenously. You can't give it intramuscularly. You can't do it through a lot of the routes that really, really sick people need it. But every day, we should all be consuming these very healthy fruits and vegetables. So there are whole vitamin C supplements that you can get. Now, mind you, they're processed, you know, the powder comes out of them. How do they, doesn't just drop out. They have to do all kinds of manipulations to get it out, hopefully not overheating it. You don't know what kind of process it went through. You don't know if that whole molecule is still intact. It will degrade over time. But if you prefer to have a concentrated whole vitamin C source, you can go to Camus Camus. Good luck with that if you've ever tasted it. Rose hips.
Wait, what is that?
Camus Camus, it is I believe it comes from a root in the Amazonian rainforest.
And why are you saying good luck?
Well, because it's so bitter, it's so incredibly vile that's why they sweeten a lot of these whole vitamin C supplement chewable tablets. And I've been quite alarmed when I see acerola rose hips claiming to be natural whole vitamin C, only to be sweetened with synthetic sweeteners, not stevia, but sucralose and things like that are very toxic. So, you know, they probably balance each other out in the end as far as I'm concerned. But if you're going to use a whole vitamin C supplement, please try to get it, you know, as with as few additives as possible. Add it to your smoothie. You're probably going to need to add some honey to it because they can be extremely bitter. So Camus Camus, rose hips, and acerola are going to be probably, in my opinion, the least potent and compared to the synthetic. But they're still whole vitamin C supplements. They're marketed that way. They're extremely expensive, and that's another problem I have, is that most people that come to me want inexpensive options that work. As far as your synthetic vitamin C goes, I will tell you right off the bat that I do not own any stock or get any kickbacks from my recommendations. The reason I recommend what I recommend is because back early on I researched the non-GMO sources, and that's what I've recommended to patients. That's what I've used over the years. I've watched in front of my eyes the results. So I will tell you that Nutribiotic, Nutribiotic, sodium ascorbate, is a brand that I get from Amazon, and you can also get it from iHerb. So it's available around the world. You can get it in some of your local health shops if those people are on the ball and understand that the most widely available calcium ascorbate is toxic and stop stocking it. Then they'll usually replace it with either ascorbic acid or sodium ascorbate. Lipospheric vitamin C comes from Live On Labs. That is liposomed, and so it's got kind of an oil-based capsule on the outside, and the ascorbic acid molecule, it's the sodium ascorbate molecule, is on the inside. There are benefits to that. I've written all about the details of that in my whooping cough document, and you can go read that on your own. Then there's ascorbyl palmitate, which is another source that can be more fat soluble, supposedly can get into brain tissue better. I'm a little dubious on that. And then you have your intravenous, so basically that comes in a little vial of ascorbic acid. You have to basically buffer it, usually with some sort of bicarbonate, and then dilute it into a larger volume of saline and infuse it slowly, or your sclerosa vein. But that can be very helpful. Lives have been saved using this synthetic ascorbate, not just in my hands, but in the medical literature. So the routes of administration: oral, you can take natural vitamin C, whole vitamin C, or synthetic vitamin C orally. Topical, I will use liposomal, I will use synthetic diluted in water. Polly will tell you if someone comes up to me, I have a bug bite, you just get a little bit in your palm, just make a little bit of a paste with it, rub it on there. The kid or the adult will forget they even had a bug bite. It will just take care of that sting right quick. I will use intranasal, pure powdered sodium ascorbate, not ascorbic acid, not flavored. You know, let me be very clear, sodium ascorbate, you can take a little pinch, not a big line. I've never snorted cocaine. I don't have any idea how you do it, but all I do when I do the sodium ascorbate is a little pinch up the nose between my two fingers. It works like a charm when you've got tooth pain in the upper jaw, when you've got from flying, kind of that pressure problem, or you've got headaches in the sinus or blocked sinus. It's magic. Way better than a neti pot. Intravenous, you can only give the buffered ascorbic acid intravenously. You can't give whole vitamin C intravenously. Okay, so that's one of the benefits. You know, go to somebody, go watch the video of Alan Smith from New Zealand, whose life was saved by intravenous sodium ascorbate, and read Fowler 2014, where they took all these intensive care unit patients and measured their systemic organ failure assessment and showed that the survival rate was markedly better in people who got intravenous sodium ascorbate. It was basically ascorbic acid buffered. Those are two really important things to look at before you write off synthetic. So it is a drug. I'm not here to tell you it's not a drug. I'm not here to tell you it's natural. It's not natural. It's synthesized. It will save your life when you need it. I think it should be given to most people in the hospital. We know when people enter hospitals that their vitamin C levels are very low, and that when they leave, they're even lower. That's been measured. My vitamin C talk, general vitamin C talk, goes through that paper. So why are those people so low in vitamin C? Apparently they're not eating enough of those fruits and vegetables. They're not taking supplements. They're sick. They're inflamed. They're living in this toxic world. They're on medications prescribed by doctors, which can lower your levels as well. So everybody should be taking, at the bare minimum, some form of food that contains vitamin C in it. But I believe that most people also require some supplementation. And then there's intramuscular. Dr. Archie Calocarinos basically turned around the childhood mortality rate in the Aboriginal natives at the time when they were being destroyed by the public health service, feeding them the most atrocious food, telling the mothers to stop breastfeeding, to use formula, and then vaccinating the heck out of them. Archie Calocarinos started injecting them intramuscularly with sodium ascorbate and dropped the mortality rate down to baseline. Okay, so please read about that in Every Second Child. So, you know, there are other doctors like Dr. Fred Klenner, there's Linus Pauling, Robert Cathcart, Archie Calocarinos. All people historically have come before me, have had thousands of patients benefit from injections of sodium ascorbate and from ingestion of very high doses. There are hundreds of practitioners today that are out there, not just me, but the orthomolecular doctors are out there using vitamin C to the advantage of so many patients. There are thousands of infants out there, thousands of older children that have benefited from the use of synthetic sodium ascorbate using the protocol in 2012 and revised in 2017. I get letters from all over the world of people thanking me for that protocol. I've never met them. I didn't counsel them. They took it and used it on their own. They saw a disease that they thought would surely kill their child turn into a nagging cough that was still worrisome, but they knew that child was going to survive. Things changed radically because with whooping cough, vitamin C is consumed hand over fist. You will not be able to treat your child with whooping cough with red peppers and oranges. I'm not saying not to give those to the children that are already eating, but it's not going to be enough. Nowhere near enough. It's about probably 100 times less potent than using the L-ascorbate molecule. Okay, so one of the stories that we hear time and again by people who I respect greatly, will tell you that the discoverer of the L-ascorbate vitamin C, Dr. Albert Szent-Györgyi, couldn't cure one of his friends who had scurvy, or who had basically thrombocytopenia and bleeding, did have scurvy, by using his own synthetic extract of vitamin C. But he was able to cure him when he gave him extract of paprika, which comes from red peppers. And so that's the basis of this idea that only whole vitamin C can cure scurvy. We'll hear stories of sailors who were cured by eating potatoes. I believe those sailors were cured by eating potatoes, but those sailors had so much scurvy that they were near death. Their teeth were falling out, their tissues were falling apart, their collagen bonds were breaking down, their neutrophils weren't functioning properly. When that happens, 10 milligrams of vitamin C can actually be the difference between life and death. So I have no doubt that when they were given these sources of all kinds of nutrients and potassium and vitamin C, that things changed radically for them. All they needed was a few drops of limes on those ships to help. But guess what? Some of those sailors actually had their lives saved by eating bear meat. I imagine it was probably polar bear meat. Now those polar bears didn't have whole ascorbate in them. They had just L-ascorbate molecule, not the big round complex with all the factors in it. So, but you know, when I first started hearing about this Albert Szent-Györgyi idea, I decided to look it up. And so I am now directing people to look at a study from Nature, volume 129 from 1932 by Svirbely and Svientgyorgy. Let me spell that. Svirbely and Svent-Gyorgyi. What they did is they got guinea pigs, and they got some hexuronic acid from the adrenal glands of other animals and gave that to some of them. And then they got 1 milligram of lemon juice, which was equivalent to 0.5 milligrams or 1 ml, and they gave that to part of the guinea pigs. And then another arm of the study had guinea pigs that just got a standard diet with no added anything to it.
So just to clarify, you're talking about the animal guinea pigs, not people becoming
animal guinea pigs. Because
okay, yeah.
the reason humans will often say don't use me as a guinea pig is because guinea pigs have been used for so long. Because simply, in my opinion, it's because diseases can actually affect them so similarly to us because they don't make their own vitamin C. So, but they actually used actual guinea pig animals for this. And what they found was that those that got the hexuronic acid from the adrenal extracts, which is L-ascorbate, not whole vitamin C, had no scurvy. The ones that got the lemon juice at half dose had mild scurvy. And the ones that were on the baseline diet, they only survived for 26 days. Then they followed this that was after feeding for 56 days, and then they decided to follow these same animals out longer. And you'll see that was also in the same journal, Nature, volume 129, page 576 to 577. And they found the same thing when they followed them out for, I believe it was 96 days. So that's a study by the authors that supposedly claimed that he couldn't cure his friend with the extract from the adrenal gland. And here he is curing these, keeping these guinea pigs alive with L-ascorbate. And some of them on the lemon juice actually developed scurvy, probably because the dose was too low. But nonetheless, the point is that it was the L-ascorbate molecule, not the whole vitamin C complex, that was equally as effective in preventing death. This morning I posted on Dr. Suzanne Humphrey's Facebook page a quote from the Vitamin C Foundation, as well as an article from the Vitamin C Foundation that I started reading this morning, and I really agreed with it. It really resonated with me after doing all the research that I've done, after the clinical experience that I have, after knowing some of the doctors that are out there using very high doses of intravenous and intramuscular vitamin C. And they say here, any review of the scientific literature that spans 80 years and includes more than 100,000 published studies and reports concludes that what is commonly called vitamin C, the ascorbate ion, or simply ascorbic acid, is the real vitamin C. Dr. Thomas Levy has written a book called Primal Panacea. That's where I started when I wanted to know more about ascorbate. He's written lots of articles. Many other people, Cathcart's books are really great. So there are places you can go and learn more about this. The Reardon Clinic is another great place, and they have a lot of experience. They have published a paper in 2002, and since then I'm sure these numbers are even higher. But as of then, they said that they had 194,054 grams of IV vitamin C administered to 275 patients with no signs of serious kidney disease or any other significant side effects over a 16-year period. So 16-year history with high-dose intravenous vitamin C for various types of cancer and other diseases. That's printed in the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine. So I'm sorry, but I can't get on board with whole vitamin C. Natural, plant-based is the only vitamin C to use. And a lot of people think that plants, everything in plants has to be good for us. But come on, there are poisonous mushrooms. There's poison ivy. Do you know that the cholesterol inhibiting drug, the statins, actually, you can find those in plants. They're not good for you. So just because something exists in a plant doesn't necessarily mean that it's the way we should have it. Although most of the time that's true. Sometimes it just happens to be better for the plant to have it that way, that it's for the plant's survival. So one more thing is that there's a lot of evidence of safety of synthetic vitamin C. And, you know, I looked at something called the lethal dose 50, the LD50, which is the dose required to kill half the members of a tested population after a specified test duration. For caffeine, that number is 192 milligrams per kilogram of weight. All these numbers are milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Aspirin, it's 200. Coumadin, blood thinner that's used in thousands upon thousands of patients in America, 293. Paracetamol or Tylenol, acetaminophen, 1944. So we're going up. You need higher doses to kill people as I'm going up the scale here. Table salt, 3,000 milligrams per kilogram. Even Polly couldn't kill herself with table salt, even though she eats so much of it. Vitamin C, get this, okay? Vitamin C, 11,900 milligrams per kilogram weight. You would gag, you would vomit before you could even actually ingest that much. So compared to some common over-the-counter drugs, synthetic vitamin C is incredibly safe. Trust me, if people were out there dying or getting severely ill after taking synthetic L-ascorbate, we would never hear the end of it. So whole vitamin C you can get from plant sources, or you can get it from the store. Either way, it can be degraded if it's not been treated properly. There is less ascorbate per weight in the whole ascorbate. Now, the people who advocate for that will tell you that's okay because it's so much more potent. Maybe, maybe not. I can tell you that in cases of severe whooping cough, I haven't seen it make a dent. It's much more expensive. It's about 5 to 10 times more expensive than synthetic L-ascorbate. It's perfectly fine for daily use. The plants that we should be eating, again, I can't overemphasize, the fresher, the more organic, we should all be doing and eating those things. Once you cook them, slice them open, let the air get to them, those electrons that should be donated to your body get used up, and it's no longer of very much use. It's not potent enough for whooping cough. You cannot give it intravenously. Synthetic ascorbate is the L-ascorbate molecule. It comes from animal glands. It comes from meat. It's store-bought in the form that I recommended, the white powder. It is, in my opinion, the active part of the whole C. Dr. Zent-Georgi did keep those guinea pigs alive using those extracts of just L-ascorbate. It is not expensive. It is very potent for whooping cough, very potent for keeping people in intensive care units with all sorts of organ failure alive and improving, far more than their control counterparts. You can administer literally through any route. There's pretty much no route that I won't consider putting ascorbate one way or the other in. It does cure scurvy. So now we have the ascorbic acid versus the sodium ascorbate. In my opinion, if you're ingesting it and you're an adult or a child and you're tolerating it, probably doesn't matter. For little babies, because ascorbic acid is so acidic, I recommend that we use sodium ascorbate for them. For intranasal, sodium ascorbate, because the sodium is very important in terms of neutralizing and buffering. For skin, I recommend ascorbic acid, so long as there's no breakdown of the integrity of the skin, in which case it can burn very badly. So sodium ascorbate may be better. When it comes to calcium ascorbate, I think it really should be avoided unless maybe you, for one day before you can get the ascorbic acid or sodium ascorbate into your body. The reason being is none of us really need to be taking those calcium supplements, especially if you're taking large doses. That calcium will become toxic. So the sodium ascorbate, just had a brain cramp. Give me a second here. There's another brand called Sufficient C, Sufficient-C, is a lemon peach brand, and it's sweetened with stevia. It has green tea extract, and it has L-lysine. It is more expensive, but I'll tell you why I like this.
You don't have shares in it.
We don't have shares in it. I wish I could, actually, but I don't think it's a publicly traded company. Polly will attest to the amazing flavor of this. I've yet to see, young or old, spit this out and say yuck. You know, even parents who come here with their severely autistic kids are like, no, he won't like it. Will Cholick, he drank it. So the reason I like this is because if you need to give a lot of sodium ascorbate to your kid, you can put it in with this. This is ascorbic acid, but I think it must be buffered. It's not very acidic at all. It sits well in the stomach. That's what my brain cramp was regarding the buffering. A lot of people will want to take calcium ascorbate because they say it's buffered and it's better. It's ester C. Well, first of all, I don't even know where this ester came from because there's no ester in ester C. Ester is pretty much a certain type of a molecule, a fat molecule. Second of all, sodium ascorbate is buffered. It's basically taking some bicarbonate. You can do it at home, sodium bicarbonate, mix it in, and some gas will come off like bubbly, kind of like soda pop. And so you'll have a chemical reaction that will pretty much give you sodium ascorbate and release carbon dioxide. If you have a strong stomach and you're tolerating ascorbic acid, by all means, continue drinking ascorbic acid. That's fine. But like I said before, most people do appreciate the buffered sodium ascorbate. If you're somebody who tends to get swelling very easily, and this is what I found. Initially, I was told by some of the experts, there's never any swelling or problem from all the sodium. I won't say never, and I've learned to never say never. I have discovered that if somebody has significant liver disease, any kind of heart failure, alcoholism, or what was the other one? Vascular insufficiency, venous insufficiency, and they're taking very high doses of sodium ascorbate, I'm going to say upwards of 6 to 10 grams per day orally, they can get some swelling. So what I do in that instance is I either switch them over totally to ascorbic acid, because usually these are adults, they're not going to be babies, or I'll do a 50-50 mix with them. Ascorbic acid, sodium ascorbate, and that's what it would be if you were to take this jar and put half.
They're all asking the name of this again.
Sufficient C.
And where do they get it from?
You can go to their website, Sufficient C website, and the owner says that if you send her a message from the website and you want to order several jars of it, in high, I think it's 6 or more, that should give you a 25% discount. A larger, this is a half-size jar, a larger jar is $38, and it would be 250 grams. It's enough to make about 30 liters of the lemonade. So it's not that expensive, but it is more expensive than the sodium ascorbate. And
Peeps, you have to dump your alcohol and buy that instead. That's all I've done.
That's what Polly did. Although she used to put it in her gin and quite enjoyed that.
I used to have sufficiency in gin.
She did. But of course it's more expensive. It's basically flavored really nicely. It's got all these other additives, caffeine-free green tea extract, L-lysine, bromelain. You know, it's just, it's a more expensive product because it costs more to make. So I'm not begrudging the Sufficient C company of that at all. I'm just telling you the cheapest thing you can do is sodium ascorbate or ascorbic acid from Nutribiotic. And then you've got Live On Labs is higher. I say keep that in your house. Keep the liposomal in your house. Keep some of this. I think all households should have a certain baseline in their cabinet, and it should be sodium ascorbate that hasn't gone bad. Keep the cap on these. Polly can tell you I've gotten bold marker and marked tighten cap, because if you don't keep the caps tightened on these, it will turn yellow and orange, and that's basically oxidized. It's not doing anything for you whatsoever. So buy in smaller quantities unless you've got a household of whooping cough, in which case buy larger. Otherwise, buy in smaller quantities. Have some Sufficiency, some Live On Labs liposomal, and some sodium ascorbate and ascorbic acid. I think all households can benefit from those. And if you can't, and you've got a friend in need, then you can give it to them. It's inexpensive. It can keep you out of the hospital. You know, meningitis, they find that the ascorbate levels in the cerebral spinal fluid drop precipitously. Those hemorrhages that you get on the skin with meningococcal disease, what is that? It's scurvy. If people just got enough vitamin C whenever they were sick from anything, I think that these devastating diseases, manifestations that we see, would go down significantly. And the perception that we need vaccines would also drastically go down. Are there any other questions, Polly?
There's lots of questions, and I was going to say, actually, Peeps, you know what I think is much easier? If you email your questions to bella@vax.com, Dr. Suzanne can then look at them and come back, and we can address them tomorrow. Because I do know that, being as thorough as you are, you'll probably want to look through them and give the updates. I don't want to put her on the off guard or anything like that right now. So email bella@vax.com and she will forward them to Dr. Suzanne, who will then come back, and we could do almost a daily slot every now and then with little questions and answers while we're both here and on the land. Now, there was lots of questions. Something I was going to ask you, but you know what I
We
must
can
do?
talk about vitamin C once a week. It's so important.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of questions like, how do you know if you need vitamin C? And does everybody need vitamin C? And could you tell us again what brand you recommend? And all these kind of things. So I think, because Raphael's just turned up as well,
Yes.
I think that we should come off Periscope. We are going to come on again this afternoon, and you're going to meet Raphael, and we're going to talk about Tiny Tim, and we've got various other things to talk about as we go around. But do let Dr. Suzanne know if you have any questions or any issues that you would like her to address, and she will if she can.
I will, but I'm going to tell you this. If you ask me something that I've already covered in my vitamin C lectures, I'm just going to send you back to go look at it yourself, because it takes me way too much time to re-explain that. So please, before you ask me any questions, please make sure you've watched one of two of my vitamin C talks. One I did in New Zealand, which is on my YouTube page, Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, and the other one I did in Stockholm. And you can go there and see one or two of them. They're very, very similar. I have a slight preference for the Stockholm one, only because I was more in command of the material at that point, but the vitamin C from New Zealand was a prettier background, much more professional. But just go watch one or two of them, because I guarantee you that 98% of you that have questions, they'll be answered there. I go through the types, I go through kidney stones, I go through what the recommendations are by various people of how much you need and what I personally do. So please go and look at that, where there's so much valuable detail, before you ask us any questions.
All right, so bella@vax.com with any questions, questions for Dr. Suzanne. She will pass them on, and we will come back on. We will be back on this afternoon talking about where we are. We'll go down to the Vax bus and see how the boys are getting on. Anything else that we need to cover?
Go to Dr. Suzanne Humphreys' Facebook page to download that Vitamin C Foundation article. Very, very important. Have a read of that.
All right. Okay, guys, we will be back in an hour. So we've got some exciting new presenters coming on to We Are Vax. So we'll announce those later as well. Just 1 second. Go and have your lunch or your dinner, whatever you've got to do. Go to the loo. And I can't turn off any of this.